Joining me is Australia's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of the Australian newspaper. Greg, politicians on both sides today, including Scott Morrison, Labor leader Anthony Albanese, they all went to great lengths to say our soldiers did not die in vain and we are safer because of their sacrifice. Greg, why do the words, to me at least, sound so hollow?
Well, Andrew, I have to say I have the same reaction as you. I've written a piece for tomorrow's paper in which I say, look, there's something we owe the diggers even more than our gratitude, and we certainly owe them our gratitude, and that is the truth. Was it worth it? No, it wasn't. Are we safer today? No, we're not. Wars have results. We lost this war. We didn't come second. We didn't win a silver medal. We lost. It's a catastrophic defeat. The Taliban now controls more of Afghanistan than they did when they were in power in the 1990s. After we deposed the Taliban in 2001, there was not a moment over the last 20 years that a terrorist movement controlled an entire country. Now a terrorist movement does control an entire country. Hundreds and hundreds of al-Qaeda activists are resident in Afghanistan. Thousands upon thousands of hardened jihadists from all over the world have been released from Afghan jails. That is not a success. That is a failure.
Greg, and of course the US is now saying, oh, you can't, warning American civilians or citizens still in Afghanistan, don't come in a big bus or whatever through the airport gates because we've also got the Islamic State now apparently planning a big terrorist event against us. I mean, it's just a disgrace. Now, Greg, the big question for me, the big political question, is whether this disaster is not just shown beyond question that Joe Biden's foreign affairs judgment, which is always questionable, but he traded on it, is terrible, but whether Joe Biden's mental decline is so obvious that it cannot now be ignored, and whether he's now been exposed as unfit to serve the remaining 3.5 years of his term, because he didn't see this coming. He didn't plan for an evacuation. And when the worst happened, he just froze, didn't talk to one world leader for 2 days, didn't make a public appearance for 4 days. And when he finally did come out and talk, he seemed in denial of what was going on and making terribly dubious claims like this one.
To the best of our knowledge, the Taliban checkpoints, they are letting through people showing American passports.
Greg, in short, I know I'm angry and maybe, being too critical of him, but how worried should we be about Biden's ability to do the job?
Well, Biden is plainly in some cognitive decline, but Andrew, I thought that what Biden offered at his best, so putting the most benign spin on it, was that he would allow the American system to operate. The American system operated pretty well after Woodrow Wilson had his stroke or whatever it was that was his illness and so on. And Biden appointed people who seemed very competent, Antony Blinken and Lloyd Austin and so on. But what it's shown is that all they are really is talking heads with no real traction. Now, they've spoken beautifully about China. They've said every single thing that we could want them to say about China. And that is tremendously useful. That's very, very good, the fact they're speaking sense about China. But what this showed was that really a modest crisis. So this was not only a bad judgment, this was appalling mismanagement. So Antony Blinken is sitting atop this process as Secretary of State. Where was he? He was out to lunch. Lloyd Austin is sitting atop this process as Secretary of Defence. Where's he? Now, these guys are responsible for this process. I mean, far be it from me to defend Biden in all this, but Biden as the president presumably didn't say, do this in the worst possible way that you can ever imagine. He said to them, do it. And then they didn't want to do it. They fought back against it, but they didn't fight very hard. They're not very strong figures. This is now, I think, clear why he didn't appoint Michelle Flournoy as his defence secretary. He's appointed Ivy League talking heads in Blinken's case. And of course, there are a million of those within a square mile of Capitol Hill, but none of them has any traction. None of them was a national figure before Biden came along, and they don't have the grip to run a policy process very well. Now, I hope that this terrible shock shocks them into a much better performance from here on. But it is the most dismal performance that you could possibly imagine from an American administration.
One last thing. There was one name you didn't mention. The woman who said that she was the last person in the room when Biden made his call to decision to quit Afghanistan in a hell of a hurry on a fixed date. That was Kamala Harris, his vice president. What scares me is that if Biden is, for some reason, forced to step aside in the next 3.5 years, she is totally unready to take over. This has shown it. There are thousands of Americans and thousands of Afghans trying to get onto planes in Kabul. The pictures have been terrible, have been desperate. But Harris, at this very moment, tweets a picture of herself also at the top of stairs to a plane, her own, as it turns out, as she goes, at this moment of maximum crisis at home, off to Vietnam, of all places, where she cackles, that irritating cackle, at reporters who ask her questions about the Americans her administration has abandoned in Kabul. Here she is.
Hold on. Slow down, everybody. I want to talk about two things. First, Afghanistan. We couldn't have a higher priority right now.
That's a hell of a tin ear, Greg. Her highest priority, which is why she jetted off to Vietnam.
Well, in a way, I mean, it's good that she's in Southeast Asia in a way, Andrew. I mean, I take your point entirely, but I want this administration to spend a lot more attention on Southeast Asia. However, Harris does have this weird habit of laughing when she's asked a serious question. I mean, she called Biden a racist in the presidential debate. And when she was asked about it by a reporter, she just laughed. And I mean, there's a lack of traction about Harris. So Biden has assembled this cabinet of smooth-talking people, and he's got all his identity quotas sorted out and everything. Harris was a senator, but she hasn't shown any substance and she hasn't shown any grip. And in a crisis like this, their attempt really does seem to be to laugh it off and to hope that in a few days the pictures stop. And, I fear that they might be quite happy to end this deployment on August 31, simply because then the TV pictures will stop. And if it's not on TV, it's not a reality in this postmodern world. And Harris has shown nothing so far in the Biden presidency, which indicates that she is a politician of substance. And this is a really disturbing moment. I wouldn't write the administration off yet, but this is a very, very disturbing moment in the life of this administration.
Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for your time.